We've uncovered the $2.2 million Cuda. We've investigated the chicken head Roadrunner. But the rapid transit system had a third, more elusive sibling, a car that was literally built to be a shapeshifter. While the other cars were famous for their engines, the 1970 RTS Duster was a study in psychological warfare. It was designed to prove that Plymouth wasn't just building muscle cars, they were building a lifestyle. But unlike its siblings, the Duster didn't just stay in one garage. It went through a radical metal-morphosis that involved a complete color identity crisis. Today, we perform a forensic deep dive into 1970 RTS Duster, the one-of-one prototype that proved a 340 cubic inch engine could be just as legendary as a Hemi if you knew how to dress it. To understand this car, we have to go back to late 1969. Plymouth was launching the Duster as a high-performance bargain, and they needed a showstopper for the traveling rapid transit caravan. They didn't just want a fast car, they wanted a street freak that looked like it had escaped from a Hot Wheels blister pack. In 1970, the RTS Duster was born in GW 3 Vitamin C Orange. It was built on a 1970 Valiant chassis, specifically VIN VS 29H0B142254. The H in that VIN is the critical forensic marker. It denotes the legendary 340 cubic inch high-performance V8. While the world was obsessed with the Hemi, the 340 was the giant killer of the A-body world. It featured a 4.04-inch bore and a 3.31-inch stroke, pushing out a factory-rated 275 horsepower, though dyno tests of the era suggested it was pushing closer to 325. This specific prototype was equipped with high-flow X-code heads, 2.02-inch intake valves, and a Carter AVS 4-barrel carburetor. In late 1969, Plymouth spent $15 million to update the Valiant chassis into what we now know as the Duster. It was a massive gamble. To make it a star, they once again called upon Chuck Miller of Styline Customs. In its original 1970 birth state, the RTS Duster wasn't green. It was painted a high-impact vitamin C orange. Miller treated the A-body Duster with the same steel-over-fiberglass philosophy he used on the Cuda, but the exterior was where the real surgery happened. Chuck Miller didn't use fiberglass for this build. He used hand-formed steel. He extended the front end by several inches and integrated quad headlamps behind a custom mesh grille. If you look closely at the front bumper, it's a forensic puzzle. Miller actually fabricated it using modified sections from a 1969 Camaro and a 1967 Thunderbird to create that aggressive tucked-in look. He added a roof spoiler above the rear glass and integrated a rear roll pan that hid the exhaust tips, giving the car a futuristic aerodynamic profile that predated the Pro Street movement by a decade. He hand-fabricated a custom front fascia with quad headlamps, a feature never seen on a production Duster, and a custom grille that looked like it was pulled from a fighter jet. But the real forensic detail is the psychedelic scripting. Miller didn't use decals. The Duster logos on the sides and the rear were hand-painted in 3D lettering that seemed to vibrate when the car was moving. This car toured the 1970 Caravan as the economy king of the rapid transit system, proving that even the entry-level Mopar was a showstopper. Here is where the investigation gets strange. When 1971 rolled around, Plymouth didn't build a new Duster for the tour. They recycled the 1970 prototype. They sent it back to Miller for a second life. The vitamin C orange was sanded down and the car was resprayed in the iconic FJ6 Sassy Grass Green, also known as Green Go in the Dodge catalog. But Miller didn't stop at paint. He added a radical new hood with twin recessed scoops and a blacked out strobe stripe package that followed the aggressive tumble home of the Duster's side glass. But the most forensic detail is the hand-painted 3D psychedelic lettering. Miller didn't use stickers. He hand-rendered the Duster logo on the rear quarters using a multi-layer shadowing technique that made the font appear to hover 3 inches off the sheet metal. This 1971 update is why the car is often misidentified in history books. It is a 1970 chassis wearing a 1971 mask. The interior was a forensic time capsule. It featured a unique roll bar integrated headrest system and custom bucket seats that were more advanced than anything Richard Petty was racing at the time. Inside the cabin, the seat to trim was a unique 1970s woven vinyl that was never offered to the public. It used the A833 Hurst shifted 4-speed manual transmission, linked to an 8.75-inch rear end with 3.23 gears. This wasn't a drag car. It was a high-speed Grand Tourer prototype designed to prove that an A-body could be just as premium as a Charger or a Cuda. This 1971 update is the reason the car is so difficult for historians to track. It effectively has 2 identities, 2 colors, and 2 different hero looks in the factory archives. For years, the RTS Duster was the missing link. It was the late Stephen Juliano who finally tracked it down and restored it to its 1971 Sassy Grass glory. Juliano, the man who Nicole Giuliano described as a keeper of time, realized that this car was actually more successful at auction than its high-powered siblings. During the restoration, Juliano insisted on 0 reproduction parts. If a bolt wasn't an original Chrysler assembly line piece, it didn't go on the car. He spent years tracking down the correct 1971 era Cibier and Lucas lighting components, and even sourced the exact candy tints for the 3D graphics to ensure the color depth matched the 1971 Polaroid photos in the Chrysler archives. He preserved the 3.4 OV8S original forged steel crank and the high compression 10.5:1 pistons, keeping the mechanical DNA of the car intact. At the 2019 Mecum Indy auction, while the Hemi Road Runner went for $341,000 below its peak estimate, the RTS Duster shocked the room. It was estimated to be the cheapest of the set, yet it climbed all the way to $264,000. Why? Because collectors realized that while Hemis are rare, Chuck Miller prototypes are unique. The Duster proved that the rapid transit system wasn't just about big blocks. It was about the art of the fuselage era. This car, with its numbers matching 340 cubic inch V8 and its hand-formed steel nose, is a 101 monument to the year 1970. With the Duster, our investigation of the rapid transit caravan is finally complete. We have seen the 967-mile Cuda, the Chicken Head Roadrunner, and now the Chameleon Duster. These cars were more than just promotional tools. They were the physical manifestation of an era when Plymouth dared to be louder than everyone else. They survived the warehouses, they survived the auctions, and they now sit as the most valuable evidence vault in automotive history. If you want to see the next case file, make sure to subscribe. We are pushing for 2,000 investigators and we want you on the team. Tell me in the comments, would you have kept the Duster in its original 1970 orange, or was the Sassy Grass Green the right choice? I'm your host, and I'll see you at the next discovery.